Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Hi, everybody. Joe Trippi here, Democratic strategist and host of That Trippi Show and my new show, On the Ground with Joe Trippi. With me once again is the other Joe. I think I've been wrong because I keep calling him a celebrated journalist, which of course Joe Klein is. But he also, somebody reminded me, he writes great fiction and great journalism. Author of Primary Colors. Joe's been covering political campaigns for a long time, but longer than I've been working in them. And sometimes we agree, other times not so much. Joe, thanks for joining me again. Where do you want to get started, my friend?
I want to start with the person with the quote of the week, who is, and also we should have another quality, we should have another qualification, which is player of the week. Right. And in my mind, that's Jon Ossoff. And I've now watched him twice in recent weeks, interrogating Trump, members of the Trump administration. And watch this.
Weeks after you'd already said Iran's military was destroyed and combat ineffective, you said, quote, Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory. You said Iran's military had been rendered, quote, combat ineffective for years to come. And you stated we had, quote, achieved every single objective. Were those accurate statements?
It certainly was, on behalf of the men and women in uniform, a historic military victory over Iran.
Had Iran's military been rendered, quote, combat ineffective for years to come? That was a statement that you made 4 months ago.
They had 160 naval vessels
in the Blue Water Navy,
and they're gone. Their Air Force is completely combat ineffective, and they don't have a defense industrial base. So describe to me a country that doesn't have an Air Force, a Navy, or a defense industrial base, and I will describe to you a country that does not have an effective military. It can lob missiles.
Mr. Secretary, you stated 4 months ago that Iran's military had been rendered, quote, combat ineffective for years to come. Has Iran's military been, for the last 4 months, combat ineffective?
It's been set back not just years, but likely decades.
You stated we had, quote,
build at the level it did before, and not even close. It doesn't mean it doesn't have capabilities.
Mr. Secretary, you stated we had, quote, achieved every single objective. Was that an accurate statement 4 months ago?
The main objective of this was to ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. Their main sites were obliterated. We're watching over them, and we're holding that issue. If they don't give them up at the table, there's other ways we can take them away.
Early in the conflict
Iran will
on
never
day
have a
3,
nuclear
Mr.
weapon.
Secretary, early in the conflict, day 3, you said one of those core objectives was to, quote, destroy the missile threat. And as you restated on day 5, to, quote, obliterate Iran's missiles and drones. Those were clearly and repeatedly stated core objectives of the campaign, which 4 months ago you declared had been completed victoriously with every single objective achieved. Were those objectives achieved 4 months ago?
Well, let me just say before I turn it over to you, Joe, you and I've been to a gazillion congressional hearings, and the way it works is that each member gets 5 minutes, and all too often they use those 5 minutes to bloviate. For me, what has been striking about Ossoff is how low-key he is, how determined, how absolutely unflappable and strong he is. More like that, please.
Yeah, and that leads to my stats of the day, if we can pull those up. Yes, because it's been 144 days today that the war has been going on. And also, a report from the Joint Economic Committee in the U.S. Senate has found that $65 billion, or essentially $1,100 for every household in the country, has had to pay for higher gas prices and inflation caused directly by the war. And that's actually from the chief economist at Moody's Analytics, Mark Zandi. So Yeah, and then of course you have the president who likes to say every day that the Iranians are desperate to come to the table and end the war. He's been, I think, saying that almost every one of the 144 days, maybe not in the first 30, but then after that he has. So with that, Joe, I do want to bring in and introduce our guest for today's show, Scott Ferson, another veteran Democratic strategist. He recently wrote How the Democrats Lost America, Making Sense of the 2024 Election and the Future of American Politics. And he's joining us today from the chaotic state of Maine. Thanks for joining us, Scott.
The beautiful but chaotic state of Maine. It's nice to be with you.
Well, Scott, before we go to Maine, I haven't read the book, which I am ashamed to say, but I shall, because I always do. But how did the Democrats lose America, do you think?
So I think there's, after 2016, and I was as shocked as everybody, I get asked all the time, what do voters think? And what voters do I talk to except the voters in the dog park in Belmont, Massachusetts, where I live? And they all agree with me, and even the dogs. So I thought I need to get out and sort of listen to people. So I went on this mission, something that journalists tell me they'd love to do, but don't, the Boston Globe is going to say, why don't you just wander the country for 8 years and, maybe something will come of it. So I was able to sort of do that. And what I found was this profound disconnect. Most of the people I encounter casually, I never sort of led with politics, had never been contacted by a campaign of any kind. And, we're sort of some bombarded, if you will, but most of them aren't in the targeted 18 congressional districts in the 7 swing states. So they're largely abandoned, particularly to my concern by the Democratic Party. So Tennessee and, states like this, places in Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene's district and others that I go to. And I realize even if you find a Democrat in one of these places, they're abandoned too by the Democrats. So they're left on their own. And I've got a quote in my book from this guy I looked up to, Joe Trippi, from the Gephardt campaign way back. We said, to paraphrase, by the time we knock on a door in Pennsylvania, they think we're a space alien who's created AI to take their job away. And that when I do talks now, that resonates with people. People get that. And I think it's eye-opening for Democrats to think that, they're being effective when they're on that door in Pennsylvania in October. And it so misses the mark. And that's what I found. And up in Maine, the same thing. And, the two most resonant voices that I find traveling around on the Democratic side have been Mamdani and Platner, have been the two that people sort of connect with and talk about. We just watched John Ossoff, which I find fascinating. And that's sort of the, he's appealing to the Democrats, I see. And I haven't seen quite that breakthrough where it's hit the people, the Trump voters that I've talked to. But it's right for the taking because they're frustrated right now with his performance. But I think the Democrats haven't filled that void. No one's, if they might be frustrated with Donald Trump, they're not seeing answers on the Democratic side. And that's our current disconnection.
Yeah, I mean, so two things. Scott has let the cat out of the bag that we've known each other for a long time and consider him a good friend. So, but I'm also...
While you were running the Gephardt campaign, I was knocking on doors in Iowa.
I was sitting in kitchens with Gebhardt and others, and Gebhardt was unbelievable in his discipline. He would just listen to what everyone had to say very carefully. I can't swear to this, but I don't think I ever saw him blink.
No.
And I still talk to him all the time, and he's still out there fighting the good fight. But also, Scott, I'm, as you know, I'm working in Alabama for Doug Jones, running for governor there, and I see exactly what you're talking about all the time. There's a place where no Democrats really. The first time any real Democrat who could put sentences together and put an organization together was in 2017, 25 years before a real, somebody could run statewide, because the party just has abandoned places like Alabama, Tennessee, places you're talking about, in terms of just even communicating, having any message. And so in that vacuum, they're just getting filled with the demonized version that gets fed to them, and there's no pushback at all.
No, and we can't even, even when we get the idea as a Democrat, even when we get it, we can't explain it. So this word affordability, a word that I've never heard anyone use when I talk to people, but it's pretty clear that, prices are gas and groceries, prices are too high, right?
Right.
And you can't afford things like healthcare and housing. We take those two things that are very different things. One goes up and down and one is systemic. And we put them through the looking glass in DC, and it comes out affordability, and we think we've got the answer. But we don't have solutions specifically to the systemic one. Kansas, every place I went, Ohio, housing costs. And it's not just housing costs, it's people are housing stuck.
Yeah.
And we think, well, we've passed this bill, and there you go. You should be happy with the Democrats for doing this. And it doesn't solve anybody's problem. And people, they're looking. There's a lot of people I talk to, Trump voters, who voted for Obama, voted for Sanders, and they're going to vote for change. And if things don't change, they're going to vote for change again on the federal.
Excuse me, Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's what I keep saying. That the more I've been in Iowa, had on the ground in Texas, obviously just came back from focus groups in the South, and everywhere. I keep telling people, this isn't a blue wave that's coming. It's a change wave. It's just like, every election's been a change wave election since he came down the escalator. First, he's changed. Then actually, believe it or not, in 2020, Biden was changed. It was like changing from the chaos to grandpa, who's just not going to mess with the dials, but that was change. And et cetera, 2024. And I think the 26th election it's going to it may feel like a blue wave to Democrats because they have the House, the Senate, the presidency, and of course the court. And so the wave of change, but it's a change. It's independents are joining that with Democrats, and some Republicans are, but it's not because Democrats know how to communicate.
No.
It's because it's just all out, which will change, which is why DSA, can win these primaries, because that's change, or Platner versus Janet Mills, more of the same versus, okay, I don't know, he sounds a little, but damn it, he'll be different. I'll take a chance on him. And
sounds angry.
No, but that's literally what I see.
I'm agreeing with you, Joe. Scott, this may be, indulging my instinct for the capillaries, but when
he has it, Scott.
Oh, yes. but when you talk about the basket of things that we call affordability, in two of those areas, housing and energy costs, I think that I've been taken with the abundance guys, Ezra Klein, no relation, Derek Thompson, and implicit in their argument is the reason why this stuff has become so expensive is that we have sedimentary layers of regulations going back to somewhere before the dawn of time, which is like just before I started my covering campaigns. And the question is, we've had a guest on this show, Al Fromm, the former head of the DLC, who proposed a 10-year sunset law for every regulation, and that the Congress would have to reenact it. Do you think that is too complicated by too much for average folks to understand?
No, I think I think that's right. I mean, my fear is if the Democrats take the House back, that the Democrats will say, "Well done. Everyone realizes how stupid they were, and we're back." And that's wrong. So out there, it's sort of what you're talking about sort of feeds into a couple things. this sense that everybody in Washington is greedy.
Yep.
Everyone is greedy. And so, but it's also the corporations that are greedy. I fight all the time with Spectrum in Maine over why I can't just have a pack. You know, you're just constantly trying to just do battle over these costs. And I think the Democrats should embrace what you're talking about, which is really, if a Democrat's elected in 2028, is a Democratic president going to immediately invite everybody who was fired by Doge back? No. But we don't talk about it. You know, we can't acknowledge that in any way that might have helped cleanse a little bit the bureaucracy, and that what we need to do is talk about moving forward. And I think that would resonate with people.
As with so much of this, the Democrats did it first. My neighbor here in Cape Cod, Elaine Kmark, ran reinventing government for Bill Clinton, and they did a really good job of cleaning things up. More needed to be done, but they were actually doing something about managing the government. And if Democrats want to be the party of government, which I think they should be, they're going to have to figure out how to manage the government and make programs work.
And that was, I think, the big mistake of the Biden-Harris administration, where, I mean, it's more pronounced now, but in defending everything that he wrecked in the first term, we were defending the status quo. And so then he became change again. And I think, you know, the reality is that he's done so much destruction and damage, and Doge did, to all these departments, that there's a huge opportunity to not you don't want to go rebuild the old Department of Education. I mean, yeah, we're going to go back and we'll reinstitute the old department. Yeah, like you said, Scott, invite everybody back who got fired. No, I mean, that'll be, again, just recreating the same stuff that was failing people, because there were real problems in some of these departments. On the other hand, there's plenty of good that the FDA and NIH and USAID were doing, but they're all kaput now. I mean, in terms of functionality anyway. So yeah, this is a big opportunity to come in and create better policies, better departments, less bureaucracy, and in a more direct way for people to engage with their government.
Mm-hmm. I think we should just say, you know, we're not going to go back, but, you know, if we're in power, the lettuce won't kill you.
Yeah.
You know, we're at least do that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, but that's the thing. And people get that. I mean, that, you know, so what's fascinating to me is there is no energy on the Republican side at all. I mean, I'm just telling you, everywhere I go, they are looking at their shoes, and they, you know, they're still, well, the war would be better if Democrats just got out of his way. It's not his fault. But there's not that strong, tough, yeah, I'm, you know, my guy, no, you know, wrong or right. And I do think that the most of our candidates that are in these you know, that have won their primaries, not all, but most of them fit their district in terms of what they're talking about. Again, I agree with you. Just saying the word affordability over and over is not as good as I mean, we could do better at that. But my sense is that the real problem for the party may not, I mean, the problem in 2026 may be what does Donald Trump and the administration do to mess with the election? That may be a bigger problem than can Democrats win enough seats, et cetera. But in 2028, that's when somebody's going to win our nomination. I mean, there's going to be a fight about real ideas, real policies, and I think hope people read your book, because I think it sets the table for how we need to think about when that fight happens, and there's going to be every flavor on the planet in the party running. But as you know, look, so that's how Bill Clinton redirected the path of the party. Obama did the same thing. And then, so, but I'm not sure a lot of the people who are running right now in 2028, who are already starting the process, have really thought outside the box enough about how to lead the party in a direction that actually reaches the American people and gets, and addresses these concerns.
Yeah. I mean, I've keyed in on two things as I've both talked to people and sort of gone out to talk about the book. Donald Trump throws 42 million people off of SNAP benefits, and that's horrible. Where's the Democrat who says, you know what, here's the opportunity to take a step back and say we live in the richest country in the history of the world, and 42 million people in this country require SNAP benefits. How did that happen? Here's a plan to try to address that. Traveling from Springfield, Illinois down to Cairo, you go through all these 1,500 population little towns, each one with a dollar store or a Dollar General. Right. And it dawns on me where in Boston, they're predatory. And, my view is that they're predatory. And I realized going through those little towns that the only thing worse than having a Dollar General in your town is not having a Dollar General.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But we don't get that. We're talking about it in this kind of way. He throws people off of Medicaid. And we think, well, people will feel that. Well, not if you don't have access to a primary care physician where you can find one. And where's the Democrat who might come up with this idea? You know what? The federal government owns a building in every town in America, the post office. Why don't we put a healthcare professional in a post office 3 days a week?
And the key is a healthcare professional,
right? And urgent care's figured it out,
or a physician, urgent care assistant, even a virtual care system. I mean, where you can at least get a doctor who can, with Zoom now, and go through the process. And if there's a prescription, they can get a discounted prescription. I mean, there's things like that we could be doing.
Yeah,
we're not fill the gaps.
Yeah,
well, back when I was traveling the country, I went to, and Joe, stop me if I've told this story on this broadcast before.
Well, not on this. You haven't done it yet.
Well, in any case, I go to a small town in Iowa, 24 people in the room, all husbands and wives. And all the husbands are voting Republican, and all the wives are voting Democrat. And they're united about one thing. I'm the enemy. You in the media, we know who the people in the Tea Party are in this town. They're the crazies who go down to the town council meetings and complain about fluoridization. Why do you give them so much attention? And, we've been doing that. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene is like a household word in America, and so is Zoran Mamdani. But that's not where most people are.
I go back to this is not in the book because it's more recent, but Hope, who's behind the bar at the 99 in Augusta, Maine, and she takes good care of me. And she said, I had an infection in my finger. She works 3 jobs. Like it's, pretty much anybody I talk to in Maine has 3 jobs. So she's been working 40 years at the 99. She works at the VA. She doesn't have health insurance, but she works at the VA and she works at the transfer station. And she said she went to the urgent care because it was getting worse and infected. And they have a flat rate for people who aren't insured. $20, take care of your finger. Mm-hmm. We're not talking to her. We don't have a solution for her.
Right.
We're like, if I said, well, why aren't you on Obamacare? I'm sure it would be, she'd probably look at, like I had 3 heads. Like, she's trying to live her life. And we should be able to talk to her.
Yeah, well, James Hohmann from the Washington Post, who I think is a very good journalist, after the first Trump victory, went to Youngstown, Ohio, classic Democratic town. And he asked the people there how they voted. They voted for Trump. Why? Because the only thing they could remember about the Democrats were that they were talking about letting boys into girls' bathrooms. I think that these cultural issues have been a real problem, and that basic meat and potatoes stuff like health, like housing, like utility costs, like education have eluded the Democrats for reasons that depress me incredibly.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time in Ohio for the book. I was in Akron most recently. This is before Platner had the tattoo issue, but before he had the other issues. somebody said, well, he's got a Nazi tattoo. And the guy who was talking to looked at him and said, I'm not looking at his chest. I'm listening to his words.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Look, I think a lot of these folks people are like with Platner, I think people fell in love with the message. And then what happens often in politics is you find out wrong messenger. The message, was there, the authenticity was there, all that stuff, but the messenger was flawed. I've worked for some of those guys, by the way.
Hey, Scott, what's going on there now? What do you think of the new candidate that the Dems have come up with?
There were the Platner. There's a lot of anger in Maine. A lot of angry people. And when Platner got out, this sort of glee, the sense in Maine that there was this glee by Chuck Schumer and the DSCC and others was just played badly. And the comments from the state party, we're going to handle this, he's not. So then I came back down to Massachusetts for a little bit, went back up and watched the caucus in Kennebec County in Augusta. They normally get a couple of dozen people. They had 1,000 people at the caucus in Augusta. Jackson swept the 40 delegates, which surprised seasoned people in the room who were with others. Several candidates were there, swept it. And I'm told that he swept the entire state except for 10 delegates statewide, and 2 of those were uncommitted. So it's like, I don't know, we want to wait and see kind of a thing. So I expect that now it'll be, and it's amazing how it changed. So it went from people who were angry to now everyone's behind him,
What's he got? Is he Platner without the scandals?
No, he's got I understand he's got some things there.
Yeah, I was reading in the Washington Post today. He has anger issues, especially when it comes to women.
Yeah, I mean, the news here is that he threw a water bottle at somebody. But I guess I can say this now. When I worked for Senator Kennedy on staff in the 90s, at one point, I thought he was going to flush my head down the toilet. So I think we have to. We have to be careful about those, have a hot little, more, I think people like the passion. He's raw. He's got this great Maine accent. But I think the consensus up in Maine is that he's the best candidate to lose to Susan Collins in November.
Well, my candidate would have been Jared Golden. And I wish he had agreed to run, because there is a man of real character, a veteran, and a soft-spoken, humble man.
I agree with you. Yeah. And his name was.
No, you're not allowed to agree with me. This is showbiz.
He was not interested at all in.
I know he wasn't. You get bomb threats against your family after you change your position.
Yeah,
assault weapons. You kind of become reluctant to throw them into it again.
Yeah, from looking at how everything lines up, I think it would be better if there had been a woman who somehow. Got could excite people and get them and win those caucuses. But those kind of turnout numbers are just unheard of. As you know, I've run a ton of conventions in Maine going back to the 80s, and those are unheard of numbers that were showing up at these things. So he's got energy in the party right now. I agree with you that And I still, he came out saying he would not support Schumer to be a leader, and it's amazing. You go online and everybody's fighting about like what kind of out of the box. He's already against Schumer, right? Smart man, because the one thing I can tell you in every focus group I've been in is Schumer's the kiss. Josh Turek in Iowa. Schumer didn't endorse him, didn't support him, and he still had to fight like crazy, and vote vets had to go in with millions of dollars because that was the attack on him. He's Schumer's choice was the whole attack on him in the primary. So no, I'm like, hey, he may have a bumpy road, but I think I'm with you, Scott, that he's authentic. He's real Maine completely. I'm not sure he'll lose to Susan Collins.
Yeah, I'm not as pessimistic as the people I talk to. And I think a lot of it's out of his control, right? If it's sort of like it's a referendum on Trump up there, he could pull it off.
What it's. If it's not a referendum on Trump up there, it's the only place in the country that I've seen that won't be, because everywhere I've gone, that's what's driving everything. And what I mean by referendum is it's twofold. One, he has so messed with the energy on his side. I mean, no one's excited. I mean, the people who don't want forever wars in MAGA are not excited about this. The tariff stuff, the Hispanics that were not thrilled about mass deportations and the implementation of ICE and how that all came out. So the groups that he had large energy or had moved, like Latinos, are now not there, not the same energy at all. And at the same time, most of the things that that we're talking about have energized the Democratic base, some independents, and I think troubled enough non-MAGA Republicans that I think it'll be a referendum with those groups. It's going to be a referendum on Trump. And I would not want to be somebody who's concerned all the time about the Trump agenda, just really concerned about it. But I think Jackson may have a real shot at being the fighter that can get past Susan Collins. We'll see.
Hey, Joe, you said something before that I'd like to ask Scott about, and it's along our usual 2026, which you're more concerned about than I am, and 2028, which I'm really, which you think it's premature to be concerned about.
No,
but most Democrats I talk to, including most Democratic women, are down on the idea of a woman running as the party's nominee in 2028. Scott, what do you think about that?
Well, it's interesting. Before the election in 24, I didn't find the same hatred for Hillary Clinton, for instance, out there that for Kamala Harris. And with people who were undecided and then eventually voted for Trump, there were a couple of factors out of her control. One was the bait and switch I heard all the time. You told us Joe Biden was fine. And then and we knew he wasn't. And then when he wasn't, you told us she was involved in every decision. And, come on, we're not stupid.
Didn't disagree with him on anything.
And then didn't disagree with him on anything. And then didn't quite, didn't have. So what I heard a lot was, I have nothing against her, but, and then, I talked to a couple of guys in Doral, Florida, immigrants about the gun issue, voting, so there's a whole host of populations that they were cut off to her, and she had no pet. Because I said, well, but she would, she owns a gun, and if you come into her house, she'll shoot you. She said that. Does that not give you some comfort? And they're like, no, that doesn't give me, that doesn't give me any comfort. So
there's this thing called the perception of strength, and she didn't convey that. Yeah. I think that and by the way, I do believe that a Democratic woman could win the presidency in 2020.
I agree with you. Yeah,
but
sorry to agree again. Yeah,
she's you're getting boring here. I think that woman is going to have to be a lot more like Margaret Thatcher than she is like Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
I'm not. By the way, I don't disagree about the concern. I'm just saying I'm more dealing with reality of my experience since 1979 through today, showing my a real old dude on this show, that you can argue about what the message of the Democratic Party all you want in the midterm. You can till you're blue in the face, and you can be very concerned about it and point out all the things that are wrong with the Democratic Party and why it needs to change. None of those changes, none of those worries are going to happen in the midterm. They never do. When we're leaderless in a midterm when we don't have the White House, we are completely up to who's running, Madami over here, this guy over there, Ossoff in Georgia. That's just the way it is. In most of those places, the people who got the nomination reflect that community, and I think will be competitive. So it's not that I'm not worried or concerned about messaging and that. No, what I'm saying is the way to address those concerns is the way people did after we lost in 80, lost in 84, lost in 88. And the party did all kinds of bizarre machinations, like Super Tuesday was designed to make sure no Northeastern liberal could possibly get the nomination. And of course, Mike Dukakis got, because Super Tuesday, everybody else split the vote. He came through, soaring through. So what I'm saying is it will be, it's not that I disagree with Joe's concerns or anything in your book about what we need to do. It's more like find some candidates out there who get it, who are looking at 2028 and get behind those candidates. Make sure, put and develop, because otherwise, trust me, we're going to have every flavor out there. And by the way, if we split the vote, that's how you can get, Jesse Jackson had a huge impact through that whole period because he ran in 84 and 88. He did not run in 92. And that gave, that may have been the opening Bill Clinton needed, regardless of the DLC and other things.
Certainly.
Yeah. And so, no, but my point is that, tell me who the field is in 2028 and what candidate can people get behind with the right kind of policy path and the right ideas. And I agree with you. It's got to be out of the box. Can't be just redoing if we run a status quo, it's going to be more of the same. We're going to rebuild the old department. We're going to get you the Department of Education back. Oh my gosh. I mean, it'll just be, no, it's got to be really, and I think there's a lot of, the one thing that's happening is I do think Trump is going to have driven the country into the ground by then, unfortunately for all of us. But I think that's going to be a lot of pain out there that people will respond to a real message that says, no, we're going to change this crap and we mean it. And it's really going to change and lead the party out of this. But I don't think us arguing about it in 2026 does the candidate in Iowa in a congressional district what are we doing about transgender in the party is not like a conversation. Like, no, that
all of that is secondary to strength. I'm going back to Ossoff before. The guy you saw on that screen was strong. He was disciplined.
Well, that's what,
he was a grown-up and he was focused. He knew what he knew what the other guys, the guy who's interviewing, what his Hegseth, what his weakness was, and he drilled on it. And Democrats just don't often seem strong.
Well, no, not only that, we'll do strength, and we'll do it one time in the press conference, and then you don't ever see us do it. We don't say it. We said it already. We did that. Let's go on to the next thing. Mm-hmm. So no, it's like, I think say it again, say it over again, and tell them what you said. I mean, it's just like simple communication, but for some reason, our party and its consultant class is kind of like just, I don't know. It's the consultants are drunk on money or what. And I'm not, and I mean that.
I think that's it. It's the drunk on money part, and I think this is the lesson from Platner, which is because two things can be true. He was disqualified as a candidate. They also got him.
Yeah.
He was a threat to the power, to the elite, to the entrenched, and they got him. And I think someone who comes in and runs against everyone, in addition to people caring about housing and cost, greed, just the incredible greed. And they don't mean, my senior senator in Massachusetts, I think, makes this mistake. She talks about the billionaires need to pay more. And I think that resonates with people. But the people I talk to think, why does Elon Musk paying more have to be tied to any relief for me? Like, why can't you just give some relief for me? And why is it I can follow Nancy Pelosi's stock tips and do the same thing, and you all leave, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, way richer than when you came in. And who's got the gravitas to be able to take that on? And Platner looked like that guy. I'll throw out a name: Marie Gusenkamp-Perez.
Yes,
just somebody who I've got a chapter on her in the book, and she doesn't seem like she's been captured by DC.
Right.
Whether she's been captured or not, I don't know, but she doesn't seem like she has been.
Having worked 20-something years ago for a guy named Howard Dean, who they got, because every Kerry, Gephardt, Edwards, all of them, like, just joined up and like came at us with everything they had and took us out. Yeah. And so, but there was strength in that. Our message was, we had a strong message in that thing. But but that's what I mean.
Howard seemed strong until he didn't.
Yeah, right. Well, we that's a whole other podcast. Which
it may be a series of podcasts.
Yeah, well, there's like too many war stories in that one. But my point is that, if the establishment, that's why I think when Schumer appeared to be trying to stop the thing that was different, when everybody wants something different and Schumer is not it. I mean, it's just, just taking, actually probably helped build Platner.
Well, I've
probably helped build the thing he was trying to stop. And then they finally did do the opposite dumps,
I've known Chuck for 2 days beyond forever. I was a journalist in New York in the 1980s, and he's always been a very smart guy, and I think he's a very decent guy. But there is a word that my grandmother would have used to describe him, which is he's a schmuck. He really is.
Well,
he comes across as a doofus. No, and especially as he's gotten older and he's become more hunched over.
No, it's not. This isn't fair to these guys. Like, look, they came up. Anybody in leadership came up through a system where your job was like to hold the caucus together and see if you could go across the aisle to McConnell and see if you could get 5 votes here or trade 4 votes there to get the bill passed. Okay. And he was great at it. I mean, he was built for that. Anybody Steny Hoyer, all these guys who put up there, Hakeem, right? But now we're in a completely different moment, completely different. And it's not that he didn't deserve to get the job and didn't do a good job, but the job has changed completely. The job of being an opposition leader to take on what this administration is now. Ossoff is doing a great job of that. But we don't have, he hasn't been in the leadership. He hasn't been coming up the leadership ladder. I think hopefully that somebody is going to come from outside. That's what I mean. The leadership ladder is just, it's over. That ladder is done. I do think that's what Markey is sort of barking up the wrong tree when he talks about his seniority and how, but I mean, I just think people are done with that stuff, with the seniority thing. And, I want somebody who's going to go up there and fight for me and make a difference in my life, not figure out how to trade 4 votes over here, even though that's still, hopefully someday that might be important again. But right now there's no one to talk to on the other side.
I am told by reliable sources, namely our excellent production crew, that we have a picture of Scott Ferson's book cover, which we should flash on the screen now. There it is. And I'm sure you could get it everywhere. But where else can we find you, Scott? Do you have a podcast? Do you have a Substack?
Yeah, I do have Substack. So everything at if you go scottferson.com is, you can get, I'm fortunate to have a very unusual or rare name. So at scottferson.com.
That's good. No, and everybody literally will put a link in our show notes to how the Democrats lost America. So you can quickly hit the link and get the book. I really urge everybody who follows this show and sees the arguments that the two Joes have about the future of the party, which I think we agree on what needs to happen, but just sort of the timing. I just feel like I said, just from experience, but Scott's book is a real important foundation for you to think about what's coming and how you can help impact the party and get better messaging.
Great.
Thank you. I didn't put an index in, so you have to read it to find Joe Trippi's name.
Well,
yeah, I think Klein did that too, but I can't remember.
Did I?
I don't know.
I think I've mentioned you in one of my books.
But be mentioned by the two of you guys, I'm telling you, it's like it makes my whole day. But Scott, seriously, thanks for being with us. We're kind of over on time per usual when we have a good guest like you. But
thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And everybody else, we'll see you next week for another episode of The Two Joes. And both of us other Joes will show up, I think.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.